I don't know what I'm looking at now. It's just a big wet fish.
You know what they say about gloves? If it doesn't fit, you must have quit.
I did have to put a bigger head on, and it looked kind of weird.
Get a bigger hammer. If our hands were shaped like monkey hands, we had the curled fingers and everything, it'd be awesome. Just whatever glove you wanted.
I'm Grand Bench, the Fly Ninja, and you are listening to the Drop Jaw Flies podcast.
Welcome to the Drop Jaw Flies podcast, your source for fly fishing talk, tips, and stories. In this episode, Jason and I take a short road trip to sit down and visit with the Fly Ninja, Mr. Grant Bench. I wanted to get Grant and Jason in the same room to talk fly tying. I asked these two expert fly tyers all sorts of questions related to fly tying, such as best tools out there, common mistakes they see guys make, and what advice they'd give to guys just getting started in fly tying. Stay tuned for our discussion. We hope you enjoy our podcast. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and our YouTube channel. I'm Chad Nelson along with Jason RV. Here is today's podcast.
What is a topic that gets the Fly Ninja?
Dude, these things
rally?
right here. These things right here. It's so nerdy. And I love them.
Ooh,
Stuff like this gets me fired up.
Now the correct term for this animal, and there's a lot of different cool feathers that we use in fly tying, which would be an awesome opportunity for you. I know the ones I used to use a lot more, but now I don't. But why don't you detail or diagram the different feathers?
Yeah. So this is just obviously a chicken.
A cock.
Chicken.
all right, hold one sec. Guys, welcome to the Drop Jaw Flies podcast. Jason and I are here live with the Fly Ninja, Mr. Grant Bench himself. And Grant, we appreciate you having us over.
No problem.
We're sitting in Grant's super cool log cabin that he lives in, and he has one of the coolest offices I've seen. And we're going to talk fly tying today. Both Jason and Grant are expert fly tyers. Grant has his own fly tying business. Jason ties all the drop jaw fly streamers. And so we're just going to do some fly tying talk today. Grant, explain, those that are listening to the audio version, what are you holding?
So right now we're just talking about things that get me fired up in fly tying, and I had to reach over and grab my stuffed chicken. I have this full-size rooster from Whiting Farms that Dr. Whiting personally selected out of his whole gene pool down there, and
Super cool.
And had it, taxidermied and stuff, and so
I have to say that's one of the coolest looking stuffed chickens I've ever seen.
Right. I mean, it just
Makes me hungry.
Yeah. And it's also a little creepy, especially when you have like a little staring contest with it at first. And
Who wins?
Dude, he always wins. This guy always wins.
Dude, he's got that down.
He's serious too.
Oh man, if you're a dry fly tyer and if you were to run out of hackle, would you just snip like
Who
a little?
says I haven't already?
Because when he starts to look more sparse, we're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's looking pretty bad there. But
So
it looks
if
good
we
still.
place an order and I say, I want feathers only off your cool stuffed chicken, is there a premium cost for that?
There is a little extra, in the cost as far as that goes. I'll just hide it in shipping, but I won't. I'm just teasing. But yeah, super cool feathers. This genetic line goes way, way back, and
Okay, so this specific breed, where is it from originally?
Hebert Minor. There were two buddies back in the day that they had regular jobs, and they also liked to tie flies, and so they just started breeding chickens. This particular line came out of Minnesota. These
cool.
guys, and Dr. Whiting was very fortunate to get some hatching eggs in the I believe it was the mid-90s for this line, and so this specific genetic line of chickens they're all the colors are natural, so they're not dyed or anything like that. And so that's why a lot of the dry fly guys really like this particular.
Who knew that when you ask somebody what gets them fired up, it would be a chicken?
Frickin' chickens, man. Frickin' chickens, right?
Yeah.
And so you can see Dr. Whiting breeds these chickens to be taller than your average chicken, right?
Yeah.
And because they're taller, these feathers get longer right here on the saddle.
Cool.
So
for those newer to fly tying, guys maybe want to get into it, explain maybe the different feathers, the different parts that are used in fly tying.
yeah, okay. So when you hear the word saddle and cape a lot, as far as feathers go, just think of a saddle on a horse, right? You put the saddle on the back of the horse.
Yep.
Okay. So that's where you get all these saddle feathers.
Right here.
It's from the back of the chicken.
Okay.
All right. A lot of them will tie a very short range in size of flies, but one of these feathers you can tie up to a dozen flies with
No
just
kidding.
one feather.
With one
because
feather.
they're so long. Correct. So that's the saddle. Out here, you see these guys.
Yeah.
You don't really think that there's much use for them.
And you're
But,
pointing to those just listening. This is the tail end.
Yep,
right?
this is the tail. Right out here, these super long feathers. These are great for slopping in your streamer flies. So you hear a lot of guys talking about slopping.
You
and,
bet.
and tail feathers, there's some slopping right there.
Yeah.
That's where that comes from. All right?
Okay.
And then here you have the neck or the cape. So they'll take you find a lot of different sizes and feathers right up here under this wattle there. And then as you go down, you'll find bigger feathers. That is called the cape.
So can you use all the feathers from a bird, or are there certain parts that just aren't useful?
There are certain parts that just aren't really particularly useful. We were down at Whiting as far for a pro team kind of gathering down at Whiting Farms, and Dr. Whiting gave us some bags to take on our way home, and they're research and development bags,
Okay.
which you wouldn't really think of. It's a chicken, right? I mean,
Yeah.
chicken's a chicken, right? What new product are we going to see come from a chicken? But he's got some new stuff up his sleeve it's unbelievable. Science is really, really cool.
Wow.
And so hopefully we'll be seeing some more new,
Very cool.
fun feathers.
I think I could take the head off and
Yeah.
then put a hook through it and call it the rooster head, and then tie this killer
You
streamer
totally
behind it.
could. Yeah,
Because that would be the coolest head ever.
Wouldn't it?
that would be kind of cool. Huh? Just a little hacksaw right there. And
But that is so cool that the genealogy and all the generations it takes to finally come up with this. It is so cool.
yeah.
All the genetics that's involved, and that's awesome.
Well, for being natural, that's a cool color.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a pretty bird, I have to admit.
Yeah.
It's like black iridescent. It is really cool.
Yeah. We like it.
Who knew that 3 grown men could sit here and admire a chicken for 10 minutes?
Yeah,
but-
is that weird? Is anybody out there in interwebs weirded out by our love for chickens? Hope not.
All right, so there's a few other things I wanted to get into and ask you guys and pick your brain.
Yeah.
For guys that are already tying flies and maybe guys that want to get into fly tying, when it comes to tools and equipment and whatnot, let's talk about that for a little bit. The vise, the scissors, other tools out there. Does it make a difference? Are there quality tools and not quality tools? And if so, what should guys be looking for?
That is a great question. I get that a lot. And feel free to chime in anytime you want to chime in.
Well, I got a new vise for Christmas last year.
Uh-huh.
Compliments of Jason. He pointed my wife in the right direction, and
Cool.
And my understanding is it's a cool vise, but me being newer to fly tying, I wouldn't know the difference if it's a good vise or not.
Sure. So Currently, I tie on a $150 vise. Comes from a company out of Colorado called Peak.
Yeah.
And I love Peak. They're very easy to use. They hold the hook very, very nicely. I never have had any issues with them. I'm partial to those.
Okay.
But, you know, you hear about other vices like Regal vices, you know, and the Montana Mongoose,
yeah.
right?
Just
And-
what?
Which is what I have, I believe.
Yeah.
And you have a Regal, don't you?
Yeah, I use that and a Renzetti.
Yeah, Renzetti is another name.
Yeah.
All great vices, awesome vices, you know, wonderful vices. But I don't know. I just
And what makes the difference between a good vise and an average vise?
usually an average vise you'll find it'll hold a smaller range of hooks than a really nice vise. So if you're tying in those ranges, maybe keep that in mind. Also, you know, like again, I go back to my Peak. The base is just ginormous, right? So I'm not wobbling around at all. I'm secured, I'm anchored, and I'm right there, and I can handle business, right?
Right.
Cool.
So
I know that does make a difference. I know some guys, if you have a cool table or desk, tying station, if you will, some guys can even just secure their vise right to the table or the tying station.
Yep. That's great. As long as you're anchored and you're not getting all wonky. You know, tie wonky flies, that's fine. Tie wonky flies.
So for guys maybe, again, looking to get into tying or whatever, list off those brands again, those 3 or 4 that you just mentioned.
Yeah, Peak Fishing out of Colorado. Renzetti makes great vices. Regal on the East Coast, they make wonderful vices. And Montana Mongoose from Griffin. Wonderful vices.
Yeah, from Griffin.
Griffin.
Yep.
So Jason, you helped my wife buy me a vise and a few tools. So the other tools that you had her get me, maybe list those off and kind of the thought that went into the ones you selected.
Well, you know, in a streamer context, which is what you mostly would do,
Yes.
scissors, because you're cutting all kinds of materials. And so a sharp pair of scissors is just, you got to have sharp scissors. You've got to, and they've got to be durable, which I found a new pair that I love now. And
Yeah.
it's Rising's super sharp scissors. Love that one.
Yeah, and the more I've learned about fly tying, when you find an awesome pair of scissors like that, you hide those. I mean, when you're done, my kids will come in and just grab my scissors if I don't hide them and use them to cut paper and different things. When you find an awesome pair of tying scissors, those are like, they're worth their weight in gold.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, that black pair, when my kids see it, it's like, and they've been warned about it, it's like it's hooked up to an electric wire. Like, don't touch that pair, or else bad things happen.
Yeah.
So,
That'll ruin your day.
yeah, scissors are awesome, but also like a comfortable bobbin, because you're going to be holding the bobbin all day long. In our case, all day long.
Yeah.
So you got to have a few different sizes of bobbins, maybe, if you're really going to get into it. If you just want to do it as a hobby, or an hour a week or something, a bobbin that fits your hand is what I would suggest, and that's comfortable to you, lets the thread dispense evenly, not too hard, not too loose. There's adjustable tension bobbins, and I have those, but a good bobbin.
Yeah.
And then when you're tying off your thread, you can either do a whip finish with your fingers, or you can use a tool to do it. And my fingers are really rough and snaggy, so I use a tool to do it, because the thread always gets caught in my fingers if I don't. So and those are the basic tools, but there are tons of specialty tools after that.
Is there such thing as like describing somebody as having fly tying hands? Because when I look at your hands, no offense, but
What does that? What do
you look like you've tied maybe 1 million flies, and
Is that like a good thing? Or just
are you a
insecure?
are you a lumberjack?
A lumberjack fly
Snaggy
tire?
skin on your
maybe
hands?
it's all the
Yeah,
fish
look at
you've
that.
caught.
See, look
Okay.
at all that. But no matter how much liquid I drink, it just they get all these little pieces of skin that hang off, and
Ouch.
the thread's always on them. So, tools.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Grant, if you were to splurge, and you probably have, what are the maybe 2 or 3 most important tools in your arsenal?
Extracurricular tools, or
Well, let's talk essentials first, and then
Okay.
and then maybe some others, guys.
if I was to splurge, I'm saying this. I have a really expensive bobbin over there. It would be probably on a bobbin,
a bobbin,
or a or a really nice pair of scissors. You know, one of those two.
and for guys that maybe don't know, what does a good pair of scissors cost these days?
I've spent from $20 for scissors up to $60 for a pair of scissors.
Oh,
So there's a little range there.
yeah.
So with the scissors, Grant, I don't know when you first started, if you got a cheap pair, you were trying to cut something, and the scissors, the jaws of the scissors actually push the material out.
Yeah,
That's frustrating.
Yeah.
And so
that's really frustrating.
you want every milligazeter, because that's not a word, but
Yeah,
if
it
it
is
was,
now.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You want every bit of that blade to have cutting potential, you know.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
So, yeah.
Okay, now accessories, maybe tools guys should consider. Maybe aren't essential, but are sure nice to have.
There's a dubbing loop tool I really, really love. It comes from Stonfo, I believe. They're out of Italy, and Hairline distributes for them here in the States. Incredible tools.
So what is it?
It's it's just it's a dubbing loop tool. It's on a couple bearings, I believe, or one bearing instead of a bushing like you see in some other smaller or cheaper tools, you know.
Yeah.
And so just that, and you know, the guy whoever designed this tool, you know, he's like, he probably drives a Ferrari home, and does some whatever he does in Italy, you know. It's just the engineering is just, it's unbelievable, you know. It's like a nice leather Italian handbag.
Ah, good pair of Italian leather shoes.
Yeah, something like that. Makes you
Those
feel
Italians make good things.
makes you feel like a gentleman when you're tying
when you're
with it,
tying.
you know.
Sweet.
Cool. So let's talk material. We already kind of went over your fancy chicken here.
Yeah.
But
Frank.
is his name
Yeah,
Frank?
Frank's
Frank.
his name. Yeah.
Hey, he's giving me the eye here.
He's tough.
He doesn't let up.
And he
Not
doesn't back
until you
down.
leave. Will he even think about blinking?
He's been staring at you the whole time, man, and he does not quit.
I know. I'm a little uneasy sitting right here. What difference does material make? And is there a difference in quality material?
Yeah, I think there's a huge difference in materials. The stuff that is being pumped through fly shops and stuff, I'm sometimes really checking out quality and making sure the quality's there. Other times it's there, and other times it's not there, so you got to kind of really just pick out.
It's interesting for me to walk into a fly shop with Jason, because Jason's been tying for a lot of years, and
Yeah.
and for his eyes to light up and, holy crap, look at this, and I'm like, it's a piece of orange fuzz. It's a piece of orange fur, but it seems like the tying industry, they're always coming out with new material, and
Oh yeah.
and they've made strides in the last even 5 years. Huh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
So what are some things that have changed Like when, Jason, you have that wow moment in a fly shop.
Well, first off, if it's new, that's always cool. Just because it's new.
Because it's new and shiny.
Yeah, new and
new
shiny.
colors or new patterns or.
Yeah, well, so fly tying goes back centuries, and at the time it started, there was only synthetic things, and that usually was animal byproduct like hair, fur,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, guts to tie with, and so the colors were really muted. Even when I started, a lot of the fly tying materials were being dyed by people, but they were those skins or materials that were dyed different colors. And now, so you have that natural type of category, and then you have the synthetic category, and that kind of stuff is all different kinds of textures, different lengths, different degrees of movement in the water, and different colors that branch off from fluorescent to iridescent to clear to transparent. And so that's just a huge category of new type of section, and it's been around for a while, but every year they keep adding to the synthetic section, and even the natural type materials are coming out with different colors and stuff. So I don't know, every time something new comes out, I got to check it out and look at it and see if it's going to fit what I do. But I'm really dig the synthetic stuff, and if for me personally, I like to blend that with the old and see what I can concoct. I don't know, Grant,
Yeah.
what do you...
No, I'm the same way as some guys. You see some guys are strictly synthetic only, and they swear by it. Another guy, most of the old timers are like, no, we only use natural materials, and I'm all for both of them.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be limited because there are still a few bamboo guys with the wicker basket, the leather gloves, the tweed jacket, the pipe. And there's a few.
The rough hands.
And the rough hands. Like, I've got...
I'm teasing you.
Rough hands. So, anyway, there's a few of those guys that would never use synthetic, and so they just closed off this huge category of possibilities in their flies, I don't know, and it's cool. It's okay if that's how they want to do it, fine, but not me. I mean, I want to know what there is and run with it.
Well, it's cool that there's material for everybody, all types, right?
Yeah.
So historically, like deer hair and fur was used even before feathers, right? Or not?
Yeah, that's a good question. That is a really good question.
But feathers have been used for many, many decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since like Old Testament times. Feathers. Yeah.
Yes.
So, what are 2 or 3 of the coolest new materials out there that guys should look at?
Grant's beard is like, it's really looking, I mean, it's got...
You're lucky Jason doesn't have a pair of scissors on him. He might take a snip.
Well,
there.
Grant's still alive, and so it might be kind of a huge battle
Yeah,
to
you
get
might
some
not
of
get your
that.
hand back. Or your scissors. But just use good ones.
Yeah, no kidding. What do I want to use? Is that what you said, or what's
new and cool out there?
Well, the hairline catalog came out recently, and there was some ice ripple fiber, and I got a sample of it, and I think it's kind of cool. I mean, that's what you just see something, and then you've got to see if it's going to work for you.
Yeah.
So, but that was one thing that stood out. All the synthetic fibers that are coming out with, depending on how they're weaved and crimped and what they're blended with, that appeals to me. I'd like to try that
And
out.
UV.
So us being streamer guys, I know there's some materials that hold more water and some that don't hold as much water. Kind of explain that, Jason, and the benefits, at least for us where we're in the streamer business, maybe what guys should consider.
Well, if it holds more water when it comes out of the water, that can be challenging and fatiguing over time, but when it hits the water again, it's like neutral buoyancy, so it doesn't do a whole lot for you, although it might have a different quality of movement in the water. But so if you want to take that into consideration, then that's how you would choose that type of a fiber.
Yeah.
It just depends on what you want it to do in the water, separate from castability.
Casting it. Yeah. Because I know some of them are heavy to cast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Grant, what goes into your thoughts when you're choosing, because this is your livelihood, your business, and we didn't maybe do a proper introduction. What's the name of your business?
We're good. I'm just the Fly Ninja.
Yeah.
Folks know me as the Fly Ninja, and so
On social media.
social media and my website, theflyninja.com.
So that might be the coolest name in the fly tying industry. It's taken. Sorry. Grant has it.
Sorry, everybody. I had to take the coolest name.
That is a cool name.
I'd buy flies just because of the name.
Yeah.
There you go.
But this is your livelihood, so what goes into your thoughts when you're procuring material for your business?
Yeah, what's crazy is I try to, back in the day, I can think about back when I started to really get serious into fly tying, and I wanted to put as much crap on a hook as I possibly could, and flash everywhere, and feathers everywhere, and wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Does it swim? Does it not? But the older I get, and the more I feel like I'm progressing, the more simple I start to become.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been really digging these new silks that come from the UK. With a ton of tradition behind them. You've probably heard of them, Pearsall's. They're a very popular silk, and a lot of wet fly tyers and fly tyers in general for decades have used these silks. And long story short, they've pretty much disappeared. And so a company that I'm affiliated with in the UK, they've began producing these silks again under their name. And so
Is it spooled up, Grant?
Yeah.
Is it, or is it?
yeah, it's spooled
Okay.
up. You want me to show you spool?
So yeah.
Yeah,
Is it like
grab
a
it.
flat
Shoot, I'll grab it over here and show you guys.
silk? I have not tied with silk for a long, long time, but
Okay.
it has a cool look to it. And
Yeah, the cool thing
Sounds cool too.
silk is like when it gets wet, it becomes translucent,
Yeah.
And so like, here you go. So like flies, naturals, you can create little translucent underbodies, and things, and
So this just looks interesting. I
it
mean,
just looks like a regular
looks like regular thread to
silk
me.
on a thread, right? Just sewing thread, right?
Yeah.
How's the tensile strength of it? It's pretty
It's pretty good.
awesome.
Yep, just like the original.
Dig that color.
But you can twist it
Pure
and
silk.
untwist it, right? So it can lay flat
Yeah.
when you take all the twist out of it, and
Very cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So a lot of classic, like
So this is kind of
old stuff.
newer, you said?
Yeah, I mean people have been tying with floss for ages and ages, but this is the new stuff. Like this stuff just came out.
So is it 100% silk, or is there some synthetic fiber in it? It's
100% natural silk.
Sweet.
Yeah. Here's another cool little product that I like from the same company. The company's called Semperfly.
Heard of
Uh-huh.
that.
This is just called Nano Silk, right? Not silk at all. It's synthetic. Gel spun polyethylene.
How thin that is.
Wow.
Micro diameter.
Wow.
But
Well,
if you wrapped it around your finger and yanked on it, it would give you a really nice cut. It just doesn't. It's so strong.
So talk about the diameter, because there's probably times where you want a thicker diameter thread, maybe,
Yeah.
and times where something micro size like that would be beneficial.
Yeah. Like this little thread right there, that Nano Silk, I love tying. You can tie down to size 30 dry flies if you want to with it, and it just doesn't bring a lot of bulk. But if you want bulk and you want to create bulk, thread is always the first thing that I would go to, and then move into materials. So
yeah, is awesome. I have not used this. I've heard of it, but
Yeah.
with that thin diameter and that strength, you could probably do some killer deer work.
Absolutely, yeah. You can. It's great for like smaller deer hair caddis. You know, when you want to spin some deer or stack some hair, it's fabulous for it.
That was
It's
always
wonderful.
the trouble in the old days for me, is trying to spin deer hair with thick thread. It was very frustrating.
Oh man, yeah, I'm with you.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Super cool stuff.
That's awesome.
And then here's a natural material. Nothing new to some folks, but here in the States, we just don't have these very often. You ever seen one?
Is that chinchilla or no?
Can you guess what it is?
Is it a lemming?
Not a lemming.
It's a rat.
Not a rat.
Australia? From Australia?
No.
It was a platypus.
We would have, yeah.
Don't.
We'd have some feds over here
Duckbill
in
platypus.
5 minutes if I had a platypus.
Baby platypus.
Yeah, if that's an endangered species, then yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But that has got killer color and movement.
Yeah.
Like you could just tell that's awesome.
And it also floats very,
Wow.
very, very well. So you can just put a little tuft of this fur on a hook, and
Wow.
you know,
I would expect to see this on some rich lady's coat,
it almost looks like
like mink or something.
this is okay. So this is really super high end mole fur. It's a mole.
mole.
Yeah. Yeah.
No way.
Kind of cool, huh? We
That's a big
s-
mole.
Yeah, we just don't see them very much in the States, but folks over in the UK love to tie with mole.
Wow.
And I think Craven might have a fly he calls the mole fly.
Really?
I believe that he uses mole in, but not a lot of guys use mole over here in the States.
There's a guy that buys our products that he uses micro mink for some of our
Oh, cool.
heads, and he swears by that stuff, but I have not tried it. But this stuff you got right there, Grant, I'd like to tie a nymph with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, you know.
Kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So aside from the mole, what's the most unique material you guys have ever tied with?
Oh, man.
I know.
Another one right here. Just sitting here. This little room is
that looks
full of
that looks
little,
pretty.
little surprises everywhere.
So that looks like quail or something, or what is that?
That's a jungle fowl.
Jungle fowl.
Jungle cock. A lot of guys love using the jungle fowl. It's probably the most exotic thing I've ever
That is
That's
awesome.
pretty.
really tied with. How about you?
It would be a bird that my dad called. I found these feathers in his suitcase.
Yeah.
And it was a forbidden suitcase. I even hate to bring this up because it might bring up old memories if he watches this. But it was his fly tying suitcase, and in it one day I found some really. It's hard to describe the color of this bird. If you've seen one, then you know the color I'm talking about. I want to see if you guys can guess it.
Mhm.
So they were long fibers. They
Yeah.
were really small, and I would use them to go around. It was like micro hackle, like serious, way smaller than that. And I'm like, Dad, what are these? And he's like, that's the no-no bird. Where did you get that? You know. And like, what do you mean the no-no bird? He's like, you don't get that at the fly shop.
Whoa.
And so I don't know.
Keep going.
He did not tell me where he got it. He didn't. It's not even. We don't even talk about it. And it might. The restrictions on harvesting this might be less now. This was back in a long time ago. So anyway, this bird is tall. It's a hunter. And it might just have the initials
Heron.
GBH.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
a
Okay.
heron.
So
I know what you're talking about.
there, on those particular feathers on that bird, you got color, movement. It's amazing, but you cannot find. You can't get it. Is what I'm trying to say. It's just not something that. Hey, I shot one of these today.
Well,
Great
I'll
horn.
tell
So-
you guys off.
so
I'll
you-
tell you guys off camera.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are ways,
Yeah.
but
I may have some woodpecker feathers I'm going to be tying up
That's cool.
from a woodpecker that was pecking holes in my cabin, and he didn't live to tell the tale. And I gave him every chance to move out. I put up owls and hawks and those little spiky things on the wood beams, and
yeah,
Still didn't learn.
oh my word, do you have that problem? Like, you're in a log cabin here.
Yeah, sometimes we do.
What's the secret to getting rid of woodpeckers? Because there's about 30 others that live up there.
like a 22, right?
Headphones.
BB gun, yeah.
Yep, little Red Rider, carbine, BB gun. That does the trick for us that way.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So what are common mistakes you see fly tyers make? Like, you can look at a fly and say that's a good fly, and some of them might be obviously. You can look at some and say that looks like crap. But what are common mistakes?
I see some guys using way more thread than they really need to use. If guys were a little more mindful of exactly how much thread they were putting on hooks.
Yeah.
And Grant, do you mean like on, say, like a midge larva, or is that what you mean, or like at the head, or?
Yeah, on smaller flies, nymphs and things,
Gotcha.
you know.
I know I've made that mistake when learning to tie streamers and putting the drop jaw head on. The head didn't fit because I made the ball too big at the front. But
Gotcha.
you just got to tie some to learn.
Right. Yep.
So, yeah, that's its own set of problems when you're using those fit over.
But I
head,
tell you, it sucks when you do a big double, articulated streamer and it looks so pretty and you want to cap it off with the drop jaw head and it doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit. Like, where do you go from there? You know, like,
Get a bigger head.
I did have to put a bigger head on and it looked kind of weird.
Get a bigger hammer. Is that what you do? On that note, I would say head crowding with material and thread is a trouble. You just run out of fly because you didn't stop the material in time before it got to the head.
Sure.
I see that a lot. It's hard. It's easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's others? Weird proportions.
So I think that's a hard one, and again, that might take practice, but you got to learn, like, study what you're trying to tie, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get the proportions right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is the best way to do it just practice, or is there any tricks to it?
I was thinking when we had talked earlier about some of these common mistakes and things, and proportion definitely is a common mistake that I see, but I don't know. I don't really follow any rule per se. I don't have a set of rules that I always follow. A lot of the stuff that I tie is eyeball. You know, I don't really have a set of rules, to follow. But it's always in the back of my mind. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I don't want to create a really beautiful drop jaw streamer, and just have like some wonky tail on it or something. or not being able to fit the head over it, or whatever.
Right.
So
Yeah.
How long have you been tying, Grant?
17 years now.
17 years.
17 years.
Nice.
Yeah. My uncle took me fly fishing on the Weber River, and I lost probably a dozen flies of his that day.
Yeah.
So like the next day, immediately he's like,
Well,
"We're gonna learn you how to tie flies, buddy. I'm not gonna lose any more of my bugs."
now you know why I got a vise for Christmas.
Yeah.
Jason's like, I'm tired of tying you these awesome streamers and you losing them.
Well,
Merry Christmas. Here's some tying tools.
There you go, man.
That's interesting you say losing flies, because a lot of times tying the flies is more money and time than it is to buy them in some cases. But
Yeah.
it's interesting that when we talk about proportions and flies, because if somebody says, show me how to tie a gold ribs hare's ear, then there are more versions of that pattern than you would imagine. And so to tie the perfect one, like the proportions, somebody might like a fat one. Somebody might like a skinny one. Mm-hmm. Some might like legs. Somebody might not like. And so just interesting what you're going to come up with, or what someone's going to come up with when you bring out those old but very effective patterns. And if you see one, it's hard to say, well, that's wrong. That's not the right.
Yeah.
Some people will, but
Right.
it is what it is.
Well, that's what's fun about fly tying, and I've really enjoyed getting into it, just creating. I mean,
Totally.
You sit down, and a lot of times I had a different fly in mind that I was going to tie, and when I get going, it just evolves into something, a creation, and then you take it out and you fish it and you catch a fish with something you created, and that's pretty cool.
It's very, very satisfying.
It is.
Yeah.
You get a lot of enjoyment and satisfaction out of that. Not only that, but when if others are catching fish on the fly you tied to, it's the same.
Yeah.
So
If a guy wants to get into fly tying, what's maybe 2 or 3 flies you'd say, hey, start out, practice, go tie one of these? What's an easy one? Other than a San Juan worm. I mean, even I can do that.
That one.
But that's a good one.
Yeah.
it's super cliche, so cliche. But the woolly bugger is great. It's a great first fly. You get a hang for tying in a tail, right? Working with marabou. Tying in a body, using a body material and wrapping, and also a feather, right? So
it's also big enough where people can see what's going on, and they get a really good hold on the materials because it's usually bigger. So
absolutely,
that's where I would start, right there.
You bet. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys do these teeny little size 30 flies that you tie. That's amazing to me.
Yeah.
I mean, when I have to fish 5X tippet, which I don't very often,
Yeah.
that sucks to tie with. And
Yeah.
I'm to the point where if I have to use 5X, I just don't even want to fish that water. I'll fish for another fish somewhere else.
Okay. All right.
It's like,
Okay.
oh, you guys aren't catching anything then.
I'm like, all right.
That's so funny.
Go throw something for carp or something
Yeah.
wherever else.
Maybe I just need to take up deep sea fishing or something. I don't know. But no, I'm impressed, and I admire that you are able to tie those little size whatever flies.
Thank you. It's thankfully I don't have to get out the magnifiers yet, but so far I'm able to just do it with the naked eye. Fortunate that way.
Yeah.
Very fortunate. I ate my vegetables growing up as a kid, and it's all because of Mom.
That's right.
Oh man.
Okay, a woolly bugger. Jason, what's 1 or 2 easy ones that come to your mind?
Well, definitely woolly bugger is number 1 because of its ease and the materials involved. Number 2, though, I probably would do the San Juan worm because it's thread and some chenille.
Yeah.
And it really, to wrap the base on, it gives people the chance to wrap the thread on in an even way, up and back.
Yeah.
The way I do it. And they can be successful at tying that right off the bat. If you're right there with them, that you can show them how to tie a super effective fish catching pattern right there. So those 2, you got a nymph, you have a streamer that can double as a nymph. The woolly bugger can do all kinds of stuff. It's really cool. And then I would, if they're going to be fishing rivers a lot, and if it's going to be useful in their fishing, I would have them tie a midge. And midge means all kinds of different things, but it would be a serendipity. Again, that's an old fly. I mean, I don't know if people even call it a serendipity anymore. I'm not sure. But it involves thread and some wire, and just in the back portion of what you tie up can be a bunch of different things. So if you don't, you can use a bunch of different materials to tie just a little bit of a back on it. And that's easy. You can tie them in bigger sizes too. And if it's an older person and you don't have the best eyesight, then I would choose something different. But if they can see well, then I would. You got your woolly bugger, San Juan worm, and a smaller, either a midge or maybe a caddis larva or something simple but still works good. So they didn't waste their effort learning to tie this fly. It's still going to catch a fish.
Yeah, and what hook size? What's a good size for guys to start with?
Oh man, and a woolly bugger's always 10 and 8, something like that. Even a 6.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. If you would have said something in the teens, I would have.
Yeah,
no.
a 6 would be the easiest in a way, but somewhere in there. And San Juan worm, maybe a 10, 12 size.
Grant, what's your top sellers size-wise of flies?
I sell a lot of stuff in between, thank heavens, 14 to 10.
Yeah.
Right in there
Yeah.
is my size range.
Nice.
But some folks want to go down to 30, and so
That's crazy.
we can do that. We got range.
I charge a premium for those.
I really should start charging a premium for those.
No kidding.
I mean, those got to take longer, don't they? To tie or
The little ones?
Yeah.
No. I mean, we're
I know it's less material, but
minute and a half, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Super simple.
Like for us, the pinhead, that even though it's our smallest, it takes longer to manufacture.
Yeah.
It's harder just because of the size.
Gotcha. I don't know if you saw these babies, but I mean,
Those are some man hands.
I'm the president of the Little Smokies Club. Look at these things. Small hands,
Nice.
super easy to maneuver and
It was meant to
get
be.
around. Yeah,
Fly tying was your calling.
guess
Yeah.
so, man. That
Nice.
Welsh heritage.
Awesome.
Small hands.
Well, Jason and I, we're not in the large hand club either, so
So we're all fly tires.
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, if you guys had one or two tips for guys that are novice, even average fly tires, what would you say? What makes a difference?
Man.
I'm gonna let you take that one first, Dave.
Well, there's so many references, you could call it, or resources in fly tying now. It's so much easier now because of YouTube. So if you want to learn how to tie something, you can obviously punch in whatever fly and then have like 12 different people show you how to tie their version of it. So Grant, also you teach classes, right?
I do.
So that's where I would go. Seriously, I would go to somebody who's really good at tying all kinds of different things, and then spend the money and take a class from them. If you're not going to do that, then you can always go buy a book or whatever, and then be patient. Don't give up on it. Because when you make anything, you're not that good at first, but you'll get good. And so patience, I would really stress that.
Yeah, on that note, I would say two things. What's been helpful for me, again, I just started tying this year, but I would pick a fly or a streamer or something I wanted to learn to tie, and I would watch 2 to 3 different YouTube videos on the same topic, because some people explain it better than others. Some throw in little nuggets of information that somebody left out. So I would watch multiple videos. And then too, like Jason said, find somebody that can teach you, maybe work with you. I've been very fortunate to have Jason getting into fly fishing and fly tying, it really speeds up the learning curve when you have a sensei master.
And I don't know about that.
So a master
Here's
and
actually
the ninja
a
here.
sensei and a ninja. No, I'm kidding. I would not be a sensei. I'd be like one of those guys with the big round hat and a spear running in front of the guy on the horse.
Samurai.
The expendable dude who takes But
any tips, Grant, that come to your mind?
Yeah, I like what Jason said, and I would totally second that. I would first figure out how you learn to tie flies, right? You can learn all day if someone's going to bark in your ear and tell you what to do, but if you don't learn that way, then you really won't make progress the way you probably should. So figure out how you learn, whether that's by someone explaining it to you, like a teacher, or a book. I've learned a ton from a book, right? From a couple of those books over there, I've learned tons and tons from. But really, the best teacher is experience and getting on the vise. And
The millennials these days don't read.
no,
I mean, even I'm going to audiobooks.
it's too much effort, man. It's too much effort.
who has time?
Yeah, but how do you learn fly tying from an audiobook? I don't know.
Yeah.
You got to look at images.
YouTube's a wonderful resource. I've learned a lot from YouTube. A lot.
Do you have any video? Do you have a YouTube channel?
I have a few videos right now. Working on possibly doing some more.
How to breed moles. I think that's what I saw.
Yeah, and how to catch them and how to skin them and all that fun stuff.
I'm going to subscribe to that channel. That one That's awesome.
So,
All right, guys. Any other parting words or parting tips for on the topic of fly tying? Anything we skipped over that you think we should mention?
Wow.
no, not that I can think of. My mission's just spread the love of fly tying, getting excited about it as much as possible, and telling as many people about it as possible, and how awesome it is. It brings a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment to me, and so
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you guys both do awesome work. So
thank you.
appreciate your knowledge,
Yeah,
having
thank
you
you.
guys on the podcast.
Thank you.
So guys, go to Grant's website and check out the Fly Ninja. Obviously, Drop Jaw Flies sell streamers. Get out there and hook some big ones, guys. And remember, as always, stick 'em solid. All right, friends. Thanks for listening to the Drop Jaw Flies podcast. Please send us your feedback. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook and on our website, www.dropjawflies.com. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, or on our YouTube channel. Now get out there and hook a big one and stick 'em solid.